We don't often get readings from the book of Habakkuk, but it seems to me a wonderful text to have as the disciples asked Jesus to increase their faith, because it shows the context so often of our faith when it is needed are in these moments when we are in the middle of having anything resolved, when things do not seem to be clear, when there's the incompleteness of life that brings tension in our lives and a sense of unease. And so the message is so very clear. We are to wait in those moments, not to run away from them, because that is a temptation that we have so often whenever we have conflict, whenever there are things that seem to be uncertain and incomplete. To wait, because it is in the waiting that God's grace comes to us, assures us that we're not alone. That, in fact, is the great gift of the incomplete in our lives, because it, in many ways, challenges our attitude of being self-sufficient, that we are relying only on ourselves. It is in those moments of the incomplete that our faith really tethers us to God, makes us those who are dependent on God and open to the grace that God gives us. That is so very important. It is like a mustard seed. It is so very small. Maybe it starts off as just an insight that we are not alone, but we are to let it grow in the moments in which we are waiting for resolution of a problem, to an answer to our prayers. But there's something else that we see in this gospel text, that just as in the moment of waiting tethers us to God, links us to God, makes us available and vulnerable to God, so in practice in our lives does service. Service is not just about doing a task here and there, but it's an attitude, a Christian attitude, of allowing ourselves to be available to others in their need. Others that come to us, much like we saw some weeks ago of the Good Samaritan, who came and saw the need that was there and addressed it. So often we like to pick and choose what kind of need in the world that we're going to support. And yet it is all the needs of the world that we are to make ourselves available, and others can make demands on us. And so if in fact we're inclined to support legislation that does away with the death penalty, we also have to be in support of protecting through laws and through our efforts the unborn. And same too, if we are inclined to support efforts to protect the unborn, we also have to be open to the immigrant who's at our doorstep. And if it's for the immigrant, we also have to be those who are on deathbeds, who are so often told to allow their lives to be taken through euthanasia. And if we're against euthanasia, we also have to be for that protection of our environment. Whatever the need is there that's present, we have to be available. We have to allow ourselves to have all of those issues make demands on us. That is what deep faith means. It's a faith that in fact opens us to the power of God in our life and the emptiness that we feel, but also allowing ourselves to be empty for others and available to others. That's precisely what the Eucharist is about. For on the night before he died, Jesus knew that everything was going to be taken from him. There was a sense of incompleteness. We saw in the scene of Jesus in the garden, the anguish that he felt because things were not resolved. And yet, he believed, he found that the Lord, and trusted that the Lord would be with them. And in that trust, he allowed, like a mustard seed, to be able to give his life on the cross. That is what we celebrate at the Eucharist. Our willingness, like Jesus did, to say to the world, this is who I am, my body and my blood for you. To be at service in a way that allows ourselves to be available to the needs of others. And so today, as we pray, like the apostles did, that the Lord increase our faith, a faith that is as small as a mustard seed. Let's see that faith as something that will get us through moments in which our lives seem incomplete and we don't have all the answers, and we feel as though the way before us is not easily seen and dark, but trust in the Lord and wait to allow His grace to come into our lives. But then also allow that faith to be bolstered by our service to one another, a service that allows us to be vulnerable to others, open to others in their needs, available to others. And in that way, through our service, our faith will increase.